Hello, dear friends. I'm happy to be able to share a few thoughts with you on the theme of organizational awareness. Obviously, I would have loved to be live streaming with you today, but unfortunately, it's not yet possible from my health point of view. I have to do the sessions at the moments where I'm the most fit, and I still have to take care of my health. So I apologize for not being live with you, but I hope that this session will still be fruitful, and I'm sure knowing our great facilitation team and also the wonderful participants that we have in this course, that it will be a fruitful session. Now, last time we met, which was quite a long time ago, I meet for the resonant leadership sessions. We spoke about empathy and compassion. And in a way, the idea of organizational awareness is kind of an expansion of this empathy and compassion. You will remember that we spoke of the three levels of empathy: cognitive empathy, so understanding other people's ideas and thoughts; emotional empathy, understanding other people's emotion and experiences; and active empathy, understanding other people's action and also knowing how to act for the well-being of others. Will together, these three create the fullness of compassion. And we could say that the spiritual development, the inner development, has to do with a process of widening our attention, widening our understanding, widening our love and compassion. So naturally, our understanding, our love, our compassion is quite limited to the people immediately around us, our family members, our friends, our dear ones. And the process of inner development is our ability to widen our interest, our understanding, our compassion, our love beyond the small circle of our immediate concern, of those who are immediately next to us. So in a way, the idea of organizational awareness can be seen as a widening of this capacity of our threefold empathy: cognitive, emotional, and action-oriented, to open our heart and our mind and our will to a larger context, which is the context of our organization. And this is what I wanted to share with you today. So I will now start the slides so that you can see them. Just give me a little short time to start it. So here we are. So the month 7 of Resonant Leadership is about organizational awareness as a foundation for human flourishing. And organizational awareness and human flourishing are, I believe, very closely related, and I will try to show how and why during this presentation. Now, first of all, let us clarify the objectives. The first one is to understand the importance of organizational awareness in a complex environment. So I will go back to the notion of VUCA, volatile, and so on, which basically is a way to express a very complex environment. I will go back to that. So the idea is that organizational awareness is specifically important when we live, and it is, I think, the case in a very unpredictable, volatile, complex environment. And one of the methods, one of the tools that we have in order to perceive from the whole is what we have already partly described as Otto Scharmer's fourth-person perspective. The first person's perspective is my purely subjective personal perspective. Second-person perspective arises through dialogue when we are in contact with someone else or with others. Third-person perspective is a more objective perspective seen from outside, from a third party's more. That's the normal scientific approach. And the fourth-person perspective is seeing from the whole, seeing from the field, seeing from the emerging, and we will describe that a little bit more in detail. The third objective is to recognize the systemic and cultural elements that are shaping our organization. So it's very important to be aware of the fact that our organization is like a being, and in the same way that each one of us is conditioned and shaped by cultural elements, by our biography, by the society in which we live, by economic and political influences, it is the same for an organization. So in order to understand an organization, it is very important to study and to understand deeply all these influences that are forming, that are conditioning our organization. Otherwise, we might oversee very important aspects that actually contribute to structure the organization in which we work and live. And then finally, learn practices that support cross-functional empathy and alignment. So one of the big problems that we have in most organizations is that we work in silos. We work in departments. We are aware of a very specific limited field of the whole, and therefore we tend to forget the perspective of the whole. So imagine if an organization is like a body, each department is like an organ, and each organ is very important. And of course, it is our responsibility when we work in a specific department or field to make sure that this department is working well. But if the organ forgets that it is in the service of the whole body, then it will create illnesses. So in the same way, if each department, if each part of the company, of the organization, loses the connection to the whole, it will actually create a lot of problems. So cultivating, especially as leaders and managers, cultivating this awareness of the whole, and it is really through empathic interest that we have for others, that we cultivate that, allows for our part of the work, our organization, our department, our specific field to be really in service of the whole. So when we say we live in a VUCA world, it means volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. So volatility means things are constantly changing. Things, in the past, one could have the feeling that certain elements were very stable and stayed for a long time, certain traditions and so on. Now we live in a time of very fast changes and constant transformation. And we have to adapt to the fact that the environment is very volatile. So it means it's changing all the time. And these changes create an uncertainty. It's much more difficult to know for sure what we should do, what is the right decision, where should the priority be. So living with uncertainty is something that we have to learn. And actually, this reflects the reality of human life, because even individually as humans, our life is impermanent. Things happen that were unexpected. And in order to live a good life, we have to learn how to live with uncertainty. If we have fixed ideas, fixed opinions, and we don't change them, usually there will be a discrepancy between our ideas and our opinions and the reality that is constantly changing. And furthermore, it's a very complex world. It's a complex world because it's a globalized world. As you can see, you know, like there were elections in the US, which have as such nothing to do with Vietnam. But then the consequences of elections that happened thousands of miles away from Vietnam had a very direct impact on, for instance, the economy of Vietnam because of the tariffs and things like that. So we see that, you know, the interdependence is something that is becoming more and more visible. So the two fundamental ideas of the way Buddhist psychology describes reality as being impermanent and interdependent actually manifest in this uncertainty and complexity. And all that leads to ambiguity. It means it's not easy to have a very clear view of what is right, what is wrong, what we should do. Things are ambiguous. There's a lot of dilemmas. So it's learning to live with this complex, uncertain, volatile, and ambiguous world. As leaders, as manager, it's simply part of our daily life. And I would even say as human beings, it's part of our daily life. So acknowledging these dimensions help us to find a certain peace of mind in the midst of complex and volatile situation. And because of all these complexities, no single person, no matter how brilliant, how intelligent they are, can pretend to have a full grasp of the whole situation, can pretend to fully understand the whole system, the whole complexity of the world. Therefore, what we need more and more is collective wisdom, collective insight. Therefore, community has become so, I mean, it's always been important, but now more than ever, it is so important because it is through very close collaboration with one another, through a true community spirit, that we can develop collective insight, collective wisdom. And only collective wisdom can help us further. And this has to do with Otto Scharmer's fourth person perspective, sensing from the field, because sensing from the field is not something I can do on my own. The field is something that is always collective. It's a social field. So our ability to create shared visions, shared understanding of the whole means overcoming the limitation of our small ego, our small perspective, our limited opinions, to open up to a much wider perspective. And this is then what allows us to start leading not from the past, but from what is emerging, from the future as it is constantly manifesting. So this is the kind of new awareness that we need in order to face today's challenges. And this is very much what organizational awareness is about. And a famous person, Kurt Lewin, said, if you want to truly understand something, try to change it. And that's very interesting. And he said that also specifically about systems. So if you want to understand an organization simply from outside, it always remains very superficial. At the moment where you try to have an impact on the system, on the organization, then you get a much deeper understanding of how it functions, how it works. So it invites us not to be spectators, but really actors in the systems that we want to improve. And in order to do that, we have to understand deeply the mission, the values, the purpose of the organization in which we work. Because this is, in a way, if you want, the North Star of our organization. The mission, the vision, the mission, the values are the North Star that should guide us. And if all the departments, all the different parts of the organization really align with this vision, mission, values, purpose, then we have an organization that is coherent. In the same way, to take again the example of the human body, if all the various organs work together for the good health of the body, then the body can be strong and full of energy and healthy. And it is not enough to understand the values and the mission in an abstract way, but it is necessary to see how all the different departments, all the different parts of the system are interconnected in order to manifest this vision, mission, values. So it's the forms, like the organigram of an organization is really just the surface. But actually, the dynamic that happens between the different departments, which is actually has to do with the human relationships that are happening between the people within the organization. That's really what the core is about. It's all about being aware of this undercurrent of human relationship that is actually at any given time shaping the organization. And this is, in order to do that, we also need to be aware of the structures. And as you know, in every organization, there's like a formal structure, an explicit structure that we know, that is, written, that is that you can read in the documents. But even more importantly, there's an informal or implicit structure, which is made by the relationship of the people. For instance, some people might have a prominent role in terms of position, but might not be that respected by their coworkers. And some other people might have a much less prominent position, but people in the organization might respect them or trust them or listen to them because of who they are. So these are the informal structures, informal culture. And that's very important to become aware of, because this is what also will help us to see beyond our limited team, our limited silo, where we only see what we do day by day. The famous French writer Marcel Proust said, "The real voyage of discovery consists not in seeking new landscapes, but in having new eyes." And the famous Japanese Zen master Suzuki Roshi said, "Zen mind is beginner's mind." And that's very important, to learn to look at reality with fresh eyes, to look at our friends, at our colleagues with fresh eyes. As soon as we get stuck in habits, we don't see anymore the life that is constantly moving, transforming, evolving. And if we learn to look every day at ourselves, at our life, at our loved ones, at our colleagues with fresh eyes, then we start to see really the reality in which we live. And sensing journeys are one very powerful tool. I will not go into it today because we've already spoken about it, and we will have more opportunity to speak about sensing journeys. But sensing journey is something really important, both to see other organizations, to compare with what we are doing internally, but also within the organization. So I would like to encourage you to organize internal sensing journeys where you might discover parts of your organization that you are usually not aware of. And that gives you the opportunity to observe, to inquire, to engage across the normal boundaries. And this is what then helps you to observe with open mind, open heart, or open will, to go beyond the usual boundaries. And what is important is to notice not only what is already there, but what is emerging, what is becoming. Typically, in terms of human resources, it's about succession planning. So, it's not enough to see who are the people in charge, but it's extremely important to see who are the people that are growing into new responsibilities, people who might be tomorrow's leaders. So that's, for instance, a very practical example of what is emerging. So what is emerging is has to do with people, has to do with situations, has to do with context, but it's looking beyond the existing, which is always the consequence of the past, to look towards what is emerging, which has to do what comes from the future. And empathy is really the main antidote against silo thinking. So if we can create empathic culture across the organization, then we will understand each other's challenges, and quite naturally, collaboration will emerge, will manifest. And this, in order to do that, we need to encourage cross-functional collaboration. So, excuse me. Some collaboration are quite natural because they are linked to our daily task, but some collaboration only come about if we are consciously looking for it and developing it. So cross-functional collaboration, and this helps us understand the various roles and challenges of people within our organization, so that we are not limited to a very narrow perspective of what we are doing or the field in which we work, but we always strive to have this kind of a helicopter view, seeing from above, seeing the bigger picture, which is quite natural for people in top leadership position. But actually, the more this kind of attitude spreads throughout the organization, the more you can have a horizontal organization where responsibilities is distributed and not only lays not only with the leaders. So for the leaders, it's about encouraging all the staff, all the employees, all the people in an organization to have a more global, holistic perspective and understanding. And for the people, for the employees, for the staff, it's becoming aware that through cultivating this holistic understanding, they can take more and more responsibility and become empowered. And the more empowered we are, the more meaningful our work becomes. And again, empathy, compassion, these are really the key words in order to reconnect what is fragmented in the system. So there's always a tendency towards fragmentation, that each one only sees the specific task that they have to do, one side of the whole. But the more we create empathic relationship, the more we are able to perceive the totality of the organization, of our task, of our mission, of our common vision. So once again, empathy and compassion are really the key words in this context. And this is only possible if we create spaces for dialogue. So we have spoken a lot about social fields, and social fields is something that has to be cultivated consciously through creating opportunity and spaces and time where people can meet, share, and create relationships. Because in the end, all of this is based on the quality of human relationships. So as we, always said within the masterclass, for me, one of the most important part of the GNH Masterclass, beyond all the interesting things that we learn, the interesting exercises that we do, and so on, is really the quality of the relationship that is cultivated amongst the participants. And of course, this includes also the facilitation team. Because in the end, it's all about quality of human relationships. Now, just a few additional words about Otto Scharmer's fourth person perspective. The idea of fourth person perspective is the idea that it is possible to overcome the limitation of our narrow ego perspective in order to see from the whole. So seeing from the periphery, from the whole, rather than seeing from my limited perspective. Seeing from the emerging future, rather than only seeing from my limited past experiences. And again, this is only possible when we create collective awareness, collective wisdom, collective insight. And I know, and most probably all of you have experienced that, some of the most deepest experiences or most meaningful experiences come about when we are able to work from this perspective of that is more than my limited personal perspective, that when we are able to see from the whole, when we are able to work together. Just a very small example. When we created the Peaceful Bamboo Family together with all our friends of Eurasia, so TTG, actually we had a very general vision, but it was not that clear, not that precise. We didn't know, we didn't have a name for the center. We didn't know exactly where it would be. We didn't know exactly what form it would take. And I think one of the reasons why, if you go there and you can feel there's something very special about TTG, it is because it was not one person's vision that has been manifested. Don't think that it was like my vision or Lisy's vision or Trin's vision or Tu's vision or Hai's vision or any single person's vision that was manifested in TTG. TTG manifested as a real example of perceiving from the whole. It was perceiving the needs of the children with a disability, perceiving the situation of society in Hue at that time, perceiving what our impulses would be and what could emerge out of it. And the whole creation process of TTG was a typical example from a fourth person perspective, including the name Peaceful Bamboo Family. No one is able to tell you who had the idea of this name, because even the name itself emerged as a co-creative process amongst ourselves. So just to tell you that these are not abstract things, this fourth person perspective, seeing from the whole, but this can really be the foundation of a very concrete, very practical, and very creative situation. But for this to be possible, we need to create the conditions that allow people to feel safe enough, to feel well enough within the team, so that this possibility of innovation, of creation, this courage to make mistakes, this courage to come up with unusual ideas, to think out of the box. All this is only possible if these conditions for human flourishing are present. And interestingly enough, these are the same conditions that we describe when we speak about happy schools. What do children need in order to flourish? They need the same four conditions. First of all, emotional safety. If you don't feel safe, emotionally safe in your team, in your family, in your classroom, in your surrounding, you will never be able to perform at your highest potential. Emotional safety creates the basis for you to be free enough, to be creative, to be courageous, to dare to make mistakes. The second thing is we need to cultivate a mindset of lifelong learning. If we think that at one point now we know enough and we can continue working on the knowledge we have acquired from the past, we will never really be able to perform at our highest level. Because as we said, life is in a constant flow, constant transformation, and constantly learning is the only way to flow along with life and its transformation. So a culture of lifelong learning within the organization is the second condition. The third one is our feeling of social belonging, that we are part of our organization. Our organization is like a family, it's like our community, it's like our Sangha. And this is really what gives us the impulse to develop further. So, and the more we have this feeling, the more we feel empowered that we can make a contribution and make a difference. And the fourth one is all that is only possible if we have shared values, because shared values is what gives us the common ground, the North Star, the guiding light that shows us where to go, what to do, and what not to do. And I would like to remind us that as human beings, we are wired in such a way that we tend to be much more attentive to the problems, to the negative things, to the difficulty, to the challenges, to the dangers. And this is really linked with our evolution as a species, because, you know, for many thousand years, as a human species, we were very small, very vulnerable, and the environment was very dangerous, from wild animals to natural forces. Therefore, we had, as a humankind, to develop this awareness of the danger, of the difficulties, of the challenges. And this has become imprinted in our brain, in our nervous system. And this is really also a problem. Because, let's say, try to remember last time you had, for instance, an appraisal, an assessment. And imagine your boss or whoever did the appraisal told you many nice things and maybe one or two critics. I'm pretty sure that what really stayed with you when you went back home in the evening were mainly the 2 or 3 critics that you received, while the positive things were easily forgotten. And this is quite a natural thing for human beings, to be more attentive to the problems, the challenges, the criticism, than to the positive things. Therefore, if you want to create a culture of emotional well-being, I would really encourage you to remind yourself of the ratio of 80-20. 80% of positive feedback for 20% of critical interaction. Of course, critical interaction is important because we also have to acknowledge what doesn't work. But never forget that as human beings, we are very vulnerable, we are very frail, and we do need a lot of support, emotional support. So 80-20 is a good ratio to create this kind of environment that will allow for this organizational awareness. Now, finally, most of us are aware of this very interesting drawing that shows the transition from ego system awareness, where it's all about me, myself, and I, where humans are on top of the universe, or men are on top of the universe, and so on. Very like restricted, narrow, egoistic worldview, to eco-awareness, where we realize that as human beings, we are just part of the creation. We are part of the manifestation. We are part of nature. We are part of the overall planet. We are not above it. So this transition from ego to eco is very, very important. But there's a third dimension that I think is extremely interesting, is to add another dimension, which in Sanskrit is called Siva, which means selfless service. And you all remember the beautiful webinar that we had with Nipun Mehta, where he spoke a lot about selfless service. And I think that it is important to notice that as human beings, on one hand, yes, we are just one part of the whole universe, one part of nature. But as human beings, we also have a very specific responsibility. Why? Because we are so much more powerful than all the other species. You know, the current era is often called the Anthropocene. So it means it's the era where it's actually the human action that determines the situation, the health of the planet. Anthropos means human, scene is era. So it's the era of the humans. And it is true, because if you look at most of the problems that we are facing today, let's say ecological problems, they are human-made. They are not natural, they are human-made. Therefore, moving from ego to eco is extremely important. But then adding the dimension of Siva, and you see in the picture about Siva, you have a human couple, and they're like below the rest, and the rest has the form of a heart, which symbolizes humans serving all other living beings. And I think this is a very beautiful picture, that we realize as human beings, we have a very specific responsibility that we should be aware of, and that we should also consciously take upon ourselves to be at the service of all other people, but also of all other life forms. So to conclude, I really love this quote by Peter Singer, which is one of the big pioneers of system thinking, when he says, "When all is said and done, the only change that will make a difference is the transformation of the human heart." And really, this is for me the absolute center of everything we're doing. All the nice theories and frameworks and all the rest of it are certainly very important. But in the end, it's really what makes it effective or not is this transformation of the human heart. So let me recap what I tried to share today. So awareness aligns action with shared purpose. So it's really the more we have a shared purpose, shared values, or a shared understanding, that we can align all our action that will work together in the same direction. Secondly, relationships are the invisible infrastructure of organization. And that's really what we need always to put at the center. All the rest is secondary to the quality of human relationship. And thirdly, leadership is seeing the whole, listening deeply, and acting from values. And this is what I wish all of us to be able to embody in our life, in our families, in our work, and in our organizations. So thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to seeing you, hopefully live again soon. Bye-bye for now.
C'est bien.